we're coming up on the release of Prop Culture on Disney Plus, and so thank you for illuminating us to the idea that that these matter.
Well, you know what? I think everybody realizes it unconsciously, and then when they see it in person, you know, you connect to it.
Right, right. And so, I mean, maybe you can preface that our little conversation here with just maybe that personal story. I know you've been a prop collector for many years, and certainly, I'd like to think it started because an encounter with a prop had happened. Do you remember that first or few encounters of you beginning that collection and feeling the way that you did to be able to grow that collection and grow that love for movie memorabilia?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Although I had been a collector of comic books and toys for a long time, it wasn't that first attachment, or nice attachment, getting in the presence of original material. It wasn't part of my collection. It was actually down at Disney MGM's Hollywood Park. You know, I would go down there every year visiting my brother who lived down there at the time. He's much older than I was. And I would go stay down there every year in the summer and go to the Hollywood Park. That was the one place I wanted to check out with my passion for movies. And I would get on the backlot tour and see all the cool sets, but really there was a lot of cool prop, you know, vehicles. They had things from Roger's car from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They'd have a couple different versions of that. They had a snowspeeder from Empire Strikes Back. They had a spinner from Blade Runner, of all things, on the Disney lot. So I would, you know, be super excited to see that. And then when you get off the ride, you walk through this little mini museum, and every time I would go down there, they'd have a different display. One year, it was the Nightmare Before Christmas. They have all the puppets and sets set up, and it just blew me away. And to see Indiana Jones pieces, the rhino and the giraffe from the train sequence from Last Crusade, and some of the mine carts. You know, the stuff was powerful. So I kind of learned how powerful these pieces were in person, and I just became even more obsessed about the movies, and that's what got me into collecting.
Awesome. So it sounded like the Disney connection for sure beyond the show was already established. Yeah, way beyond that. That's incredible. I'm noticing in the background there the Jack face maquettes that you have.
Yeah.
In your shot. Maybe could you? I guess that's something that you do see in the show. I think as you were looking at it toward the end of the episode. But
yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about just the collection that you have there?
Well, these are some select pieces from my collection that I have in my office. I have other spaces where I have other pieces, and but this is where I work, and this is kind of these are the pieces that inspire me. These particular Jack heads are interesting because these are screen used pieces from production. But if anybody's a Disney collector, they'll look at this and say, isn't that the 12 Faces of Jack that Disney produced? I think there were 500 of sets years back. And it is actually, but this is the prototype box for that set and the 12 original production heads that were used to cast to make that 12 Faces of Jack. So each one here has a mounting point.
To be able to connect to his, the rest of his body, right?
Right. This would register to the rest of the body. So some of them have different numbers on them. Some of them have different color marks. But this is 12 of hundreds of faces that were used to animate Jack's replacement animation to animate Jack's speaking voice.
Right. It was stop motion filmmaking.
It was stop motion filmmaking. Some of the characters would have been manually moved around the faces so they could talk. Some of them were replacement animation. So this was part of the replacement animation for Jack, so they can get really tight dialogue connection to the animation.
Right.
And as things moved on, nowadays, this was all hand sculpted, but nowadays they do this in the computer and then print it so that you have really smooth animation when it comes to facial movement and dialogue.
Right. That's incredible. Yeah, I found that interesting too when you were going through and describing all the props in the episodes, that as much as we'd like to think that we connect a lot of props to the actors who use them, there were a lot of people behind the scenes that were artisans and craftsmen and women to be able to make these. And I think all the films that you used or showcased in this for season 2, this was all before mainly the use of digital and computers nowadays. And so a lot of the things that you were showing were works of art.
Yes, absolutely. And not to discount, you know, the use of computers to make artwork, because nowadays some amazing artwork comes out of artists using computers to do 3D sculpting, to do 2D art, to do design, all those things. But there's something about the tangible aspect of pieces like this that, you know, were manually sculpted. Although the interesting thing about Jack's face is, although they were sculpted by hand, they did use a old, well, at the time it was new, but a Mac computer, and they inserted photos of every one of the heads, and then they figured out how the dialogue would work. So even though they were manually made, a computer was still used to help figure out the proper animation for the movement of the mouth.
Right. So it was a combination of just a lot of different trades coming together to make this one thing that would be used essentially once, it sounds like, and then be moved on to another. Wow. That's incredible, my friend. I mean, it's interesting to think that, I think putting a visual to the idea of movie making, I think only makes us appreciate the art form a lot more. And I think that's what makes this show so powerful.
Yeah, and you know, you think about these people that work on these films, these craftsmen and women that work on these films. Sometimes they're on the film longer than the director, you know, because the director may get brought in at the last minute because somebody else is working on it. You've got these artists that start in pre-production and they're making stuff all the way through to the end of production because there's so much stuff to be made. So there's a lot of time investment in these movies with people. And, you know, if it's a fun time and an engrossing time to work on the movie, and then the film is successful, it really makes a strong emotional connection. Right.
You mentioned emotion, and I think a lot of people, when at least I had heard about the show, I was certainly interested in it. But I remember on the media conference call that we had a few days ago, a lot of people thought that the show would be super dry. And you know, I mean, that's a discredit, just, you know, the idea of props, and, you know,
it's understandable.
It kind of reminded me of like a popular Antiques Roadshow kind of deal.
Well, yeah, and the idea in a lot of ways is that. But if you delve into the reason why people love these films and at its core, and why these artifacts are important, it's because these movies are important. If you delve into that, then you understand the emotion, and the emotion comes out.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. And I think even just the way that you guys framed every scene, it seems like, by pairing, you know, I mean, really, really cool, really relevant locations, filming locations. And then when you essentially were Oprah-esque and you decided to share Karen Doctress, her, you know, her costume, you know, I mean, all of those elements came together to the point where, you know, there were many times where I was getting teary-eyed because, I mean, it was great to see people react to the thing that they hadn't seen in a long time, like an old friend. But I felt just a human connection to a thing that certainly matters to me as an audience member, but that deeper level of emotion comes through when, you know, the people that were responsible in making the prop or the people that used the prop were met with it again after so long, and
Right.
it just made you connect, you know. And so, was that always the thing that you wanted to do when you were making the series with Disney Plus?
You know, the emotional connection I have to these movies, and thereby, you know, I'm kind of the placebo for the audience. I'm the representation for the audience as far as the show goes. I felt that was important, and I know it means a lot to me, and I felt like some people we would talk to, there would be more of an emotional connection. But I never thought that we would get this much heart in the show.
Mm-hmm.
We just went out to tell these interesting stories and to celebrate these interesting people with this interesting artwork, and tried to be as much of from a fan's perspective as possible, and it worked. We're just
Right.
very fortunate that it worked.
Right. I think so too. And then of course you have a big hand in that as well, because you know, I see you, and I think a lot of people who will end up seeing the series as well will see you just as a fan. You know, like it comes from such a genuine place, it seems like, to be able to want to do the show like this. And it sounds like you were also given the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to partner with the company that has really driven, you know, I would say pop culture forward, and the opportunity to even have a series like this, to have it be so relevant to today.
Yeah, when Jason Henry, my partner on the show, and I got the order for the show, both of us looked at each other and said, "Oh my God, they're actually letting us do this? Two fanboys that love Disney, they're letting us do this." Yes, we were producers and directors, but to be able to dive into these subjects and to talk about these amazing films that you know, are the cherries, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, of Disney's movie history, was insane. And, you know, we had to pinch ourselves many times. I realize how fortunate I am to be in this position. And I'm very, very thankful for that. And I want to make sure that, you know, one of the things that was important to me, that Disney's trust in me and my team was warranted. So we worked our butts off on the show, and we wanted to make it everything that you could possibly be. And I think we got there to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. I think you guys got there too, for sure. Two final questions for you, my friend, before I let you go. Is one, I think for people who have heard about the Walt Disney Archives before, they certainly haven't seen the Walt Disney Archives, apart from you know, hadn't it been for the lockdown right now, people would be able to go to Bowers Museum in Santa Ana and see a grand collection of stuff from that warehouse. But I have to ask, and it's just a fact-finding thing, and I probably will not be doing any type of visits to the warehouse anytime soon, but it looked like that warehouse is somewhere near Six Flags Magic Mountain, according to your drone shots. So I don't
no comment.
No comment.
No comment.
Got it. So that for sure is something you guys could not disclose whatsoever.
No.
That vault is sealed.
That vault is sealed, and yeah, there's you wear blinders on your eyes. You know, you have to turn your phone off. No, it's not that crazy, but it is. You know, it's Disney's history there, and they have to protect it. My hope, in some small part, that our show helps Disney push the point to become to allow for a Disney Museum of movie history. I would love for them to do something like that. I think there's so much great. I'm on really Disney history in general, not just movie history. They've got so many great things that they've kept, and it's good that they're able to loan some of these pieces and do traveling exhibits. But man, to have their own museum, it would be spectacular that you could go to and visit this stuff in person.
Right.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I hope I don't get in trouble for saying
No.
this, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I have no inside information, but
Right.
that's what I would want. That's what I would want.
No, absolutely. I think the fans who've seen it both at Bowers and who've been to the traveling exhibitions that D23 has put on, as well as the ones that have been at the expo, you know, D23 expo, they've been able to
wonderful exhibits.
A lot of their stuff there too, which is interesting. Quick follow-up to that question though, because that was one of the questions I had asked you on a conference call, is that you certainly have a lot of collections, and they certainly have a lot of collections. I'm reminded that Bob Iger is on the chair, or not on the chair. Bob Iger is in leadership for the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Hollywood that's currently being built. So maybe less of a question, but I would certainly think that it would be very cool as the museum hopefully opens up in December, as they'd mentioned, to maybe see a partnership between you and them and see what happens, because that would be a great opportunity to be able to connect movie fans with some of the things that you're mentioning.
I would agree. I donated money to the Academy Museum in early days because it was important to me that they do something like this, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to be doing. I don't know whether Disney's going to be working with the Academy, but I can only imagine. I would think it's in the benefit of every major company, film company in the world, to want to loan and donate pieces to the Academy Museum. And I think that would be wonderful. But I do, separate from the Academy Museum, it'd be great to see something specific about Disney. So
sure, absolutely, my friend. And here's my final question for you. And
yes.
And maybe I'm, and this is just coming from a fan also, but I'm seeing that a hat, a fedora, also to your left there. Is that a screen used Indiana Jones fedora?
It is.
Oh man.
That fedora and the whip that's below it are both from Temple of Doom.
Oh wow.
And I can actually screen match the hat to a number of scenes from the film. Heavily used. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is kind of one of my obsessions within the hobby. I've been, and probably why I connected so well to prop collecting is because in the back of your mind, you think of yourself as like a film historian version of Indy. Not that I am by any means, but it's just, it's you relate to him going out and say, that must be in a museum. And here I am collecting these pieces. They're not in a museum right now, but they will be eventually.
Right. I'm just, I got emotional seeing it. And if you're confirming it right now, because, growing up as a kid, just like so many other people, probably even you yourself, were inspired by this guy who went up and did so many things, and it, I guess, did so with a human component as well. And to just see, that this, oh, wow. Oh man. I have the theme park version of it, of one that Disney Consumer Products had made, and I bought in front of the.
I have that one too, actually.
Right.
I have all the replicas. See all this little dust on it?
Yeah.
That's Fuller's Earth still left over from set.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. So I mean, for I think the last comment that I'll make in regards to the hat and the whip, and maybe Indian, to just sum up our conversation. I think you also said you wanted to make this show because you wanted to inspire people.
Yes.
And certainly I think, this is going to come to inspire a lot of people in their own unique way. But if there was a magic wand and you were able to impart some wisdom to people through the show. And if you get picked up for season 2, which I'm sure you're thinking about already, and hopefully you can do Indiana Jones. But
we'll see.
What would you? Yes.
Crossing my fingers.
What would you say that wisdom might be like? Because I certainly think, depending on who you are, you can look at it as a movie buff and want to make films. But I can see so many other ways that people can get inspired by it. But I'm wondering what you personally think you'd love to leave people with as, they watch the show, and as potentially you guys that have the opportunity to do more.
I have to say I was trying to make the best show that I could. We were trying to make the best show that we could, with, that inspired people to look at, the art form behind movies and television. I don't know. They mean a lot to me, and I think movies mean a lot to a lot of people. It's an escape. Just try to I personally don't think I'm going to inspire anyone, but my hope is the show inspires people to realize that anybody can do this if you're passionate about it enough. I came from a background of working in selling cranes years ago, and then all the while collecting movie props, and then I became a photographer, and the next thing I'm producing television shows, and now I'm a host to a show. I've never had any aspiration to be in front of the camera, but I guess I just happened to be the guy who was in the right place at the right time, and I love this stuff, so might as well try and get other people to love it as well the way I do. I at least show them that it's special.
Right.
I'm not sure I answered your question correctly.
No, you did.
I'm not sure how to,
Yeah. Well, no, I think a lot of people, you were saying that you weren't an inspiration. I think you are. I think the idea that you can, share items and connect them to people and do that in an audience that, is such a universal in itself, is such a universal language that we all feel the way that we do because of people's efforts and people's works like yourself. I think it's only a testament to, the heart that came through and being able to not only create a great show, but also, especially amid this moment where we're all apart, to feel connected. And so I just want to say thank you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. I have to say, it is the timing of our show's release seems to be, good for people. It makes you smile. It brings you back to happier times. And if I can take a little pain away from people with our show, then that means a lot to me. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you so much again, my friend, for
absolutely
connecting again and for sharing the hat and your stories and the show.
Thanks for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, friend. Everyone can start watching Prop Culture Season 1 May 1st.
May 1st.
All right, Dan. Thanks so much, friend.
Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.